7th, Buckland Select Board. It is 5 o'clock, and we will be moving right into our first appointment. We have Jake Eberling from Berkshire Educational Resources, K-12, 2D, 8T Committee overview for the Mohawk Trail Regional School District Sustainability Study. Jake?
Yeah, thank you, Select Board members, your manager, and all the folks who are here tonight for inviting us to spend a few minutes with you tonight talking about the Sustainability Study Phase 2 that has been launched, and we're getting into as we start the calendar year. As part of the Phase 2 Sustainability Study, we're really placing a high premium on public outreach. And so we're spending time going town to town, meeting with school community stakeholders, faculty and staff, school committees, as many people as we can, so they understand what it is we're tackling, how we're going to tackle it, and then also really soliciting feedback from folks on how they see the schools, how they perceive the schools, where they see strengths, where they see challenges, where you see tension points, but most importantly, where you see opportunities and possible solutions. I often say the answer is in the room, and typically folks who are in the community know more about the system than we will, but our job is going to be to hopefully curate lots of ideas and then ultimately evaluate those, work with our steering committee to ultimately bring forward what we hope will be some acceptable possibilities for the region around education. So I know I'm joined tonight by Martha Thurber, who's the chair of the Mohawk Trail School Committee, and Paul Consolo, who was on the steering committee. So thanks for both of you for being here. I'm sure there's other folks here I should probably recognize. But so the agenda tonight, it's about a 20-minute presentation, and then I'll certainly have time to answer any questions you have. But I do want to point out, if you have any questions, you can stop at any point. This is a very comfortable setting, and so if you want to have a discussion, anything that's raised, just jump in, and we'll tackle it. But we're going to do an overview a little bit about what Book 12 is, our work plan, and then obviously what you'll expect to see upcoming as we engage in the work. I already said stop me if you need to. The charge generally is just to really understand and further study the operating and organizational structures of the two regional school districts, Mohawk Trail, Allamont regional school districts, which obviously encompass the 8 towns, which you are all familiar with. This is not a new set of exercises necessarily, although we believe we're going to bring hopefully a fresh set of eyes and some really intensive examination of what's happening in the region, but we're also going to be building a lot of work that's happened in some before. I'm starting by really emphasizing to the community that we have built a website that we're really encouraging folks go to and use. This is the website. It's 2districts8towns.org. I will send Heather an email tomorrow that will have links to the website, links to this presentation, which is already loaded on the website, and then also hopefully a survey that has some potential for folks to provide some initial input that we're looking to solicit over the course of these initial presentations. But please use the website. It's got a calendar on it. It's got great resources. It's got all the historical work that's been done, and we're going to begin to populate as we get into the various sort of study domains, various reports that deal with particular aspects of the work, everything from enrollment to budget to buildings to finance to education. So the problem basically is that you all face is not one that's a unique problem. Same problem we face in Berkshire County. I live on the Dalton-Windsor line, so I also live in a somewhat rural area. And Berkshire County, like the 8 towns, and Franklin County generally, has also been declining in enrollment. And at the same time, the schools are facing rising operational costs year to year as expenses, both related to personnel and operating expenses, increase. That's compounded by the fact that the state is not really contributing any more aid. State aid is really driven mostly by the number of kids you have. So when your student count doesn't go up, you don't get more aid. You get whatever the annual increase is, which doesn't really run commensurate with inflation or operating increases. And all that's compounded by increasing needs of the student body, everything from special education to English language learners to the social-emotional barriers that a lot of our kids face as they are navigating, a complex world. So the goal, of course, is to end up with the highest quality educational programs, services, and supports for your students in a way that's financially sustainable. That's really the bottom line. Just some precursor data sets, and this is by no way our final product. We have a lot of work to do to really unpack enrollment, but this is just a very quick snapshot of enrollment trends since 1997, fiscal year 97, and you can see just by, I'll put the numbers on, that overall enrollment in 1997 was about 1,700 students, and today it's standing a little over 700. So you've lost quite a few students, and the other lines are focused specifically on age bands or grade bands, and then we obviously will be unpacking enrollment by schools too. So all of this will be part of the study, but it's important. This is, again, not unique. Don't feel picked on. Don't feel, we're seeing the same enrollment decline in Berkshire County and other rural regions of the state. Hall-Lamont, same sort of thing, a little bit more bounciness in Hall-Lamont. It's obviously a one-school district, but they've seen pretty precipitous declines in the last 2 years. And then all is compounded by the financial picture. And this is a graph that I use quite a bit just to sort of introduce folks to basic elements of school finance. And this visual for me works because the orange bars at the bottom, you can very distinctly see the orange bars. That is your state aid since 1993. And as you can see, really over the last, 20 years, it's in effect flat, right? So no change. The blue bar is what you're required to spend, so that's your local required contribution, which is calculated for each town. You all know this. You get your cherry sheets, you get your information from the district. It all gets pooled into the regional agreement, allocation. And then the blue line at the top is what you actually spend as a district. And so most districts spend more than is required to manage their districts, but really what these graphs speak to me in that the gap between state aid and what you actually spend has increased, and when that gap increases, the fiscal liability gets transferred to the towns, and the towns have to pick up more of the tab, and that's in effect what's happening. Right, so we're just talking basically about setting the stage for the challenges you all face. This is, then all that gets translated to assessments, which obviously part of your assessment is your required contribution, but you also have a regional agreement that has an apportionment or assessment methodology out to the 8 towns for the 2 districts, and on a year-to-year basis that fluctuates. I sit on the Central Berkshire School Committee, which is 7 towns, and this year we have a couple of towns that went up dramatically, and that's a challenge. When you see the assessments bounce around like that, because a town will get hit depending on their enrollment changes year to year, and depending on the methodology you use. So obviously assessments is something we also are looking at. Then because this is a town presentation, we also just want to make sure you all understood that we're going to look at a lot of town variables. It's not just school variables. We look at the town finance variables too. Everything from your tax levy to your ceiling to your sort of average tax bills and what portion of your tax bills has contributed to education. We really try to unpack things so folks have a full 360 view of what's happening financially, both in the district and at the town level. All right? And part of that could be, if you were down the road to say, hey, we want to revisit how we apportion funds to the schools across the 8 towns as part of an adjusted regional agreement. I'm not saying that's what we will recommend or will be recommended, but that would be, these are the sorts of things you'd be looking at. So transitioning to who Burke 12 is, we as an organization, we were launched in 2015 as a completely volunteer group, and we were launched in Berkshire County to address the issue of declining enrollment and no resources. And so we came together, we had representatives from every single one of our towns and every single school department, school committee and school district to really talk about how we might tackle this. So we have sustained the organization. We've become an organization that now is grounded in really thinking about how we can solve the challenges of shrinking enrollment and stretched resources by thinking more collaboratively as a region. And part of that is short-term solutions, things like doing projects across multiple districts. It could be sharing professional development, it could be sharing positions. Some of those are bigger, studies, like the one we just finished in southern Berkshire, which was a 2.5-year study, which was the potential of consolidating 2 regional districts, southern Berkshire and Berkshire Hills, into a single, what we called super region, 8-town region.
Did that happen?
It didn't happen. We spent about 1.5 years, which is kind of where I see our role with you all, where this project will land, which is the first 1.5 years was spent sort of looking at what was happening, looking at options, and then that particular steering committee, that planning board wanted our consulting group to actually make a recommendation, and we did, and they ultimately voted to support it, and then we spent about 1 year plus then developing an updated regional agreement, which was approved by the Department of Education and the Commissioner. It went to the voters, and it failed at town level. So, and I could spend a whole other presentation talking about that whole process and lessons learned, and I'm sure you have questions right now. But one of the quick lessons learned, just to sort of share with you all, is that we didn't get out as aggressively early with the community engagement work. We did a lot of that in the back half, but I think at that point, people felt like maybe they weren't as involved in sort of the inception of the study and sort of the grounding of the study as we intend these 8 towns to be. That's why we're spending time on the community engagement. The other difference I just want to point out is that that particular study was launched by the select boards. And the select boards did it because the school committees, one of the school committees in particular said, we're not crazy about doing this consolidation study, and the select board said, we really want you to do it, we're going to launch a regulatory committee, and they did. So from the very beginning, we didn't have full school committee buy-in, and the difference in this study is your 2 school committees are launching this process. And that's a really big difference. They understand that there are some challenges ahead, and they, I think, really want to think proactively around how to roll up their sleeves and lean into those.
Thank you.
And just again, so you don't feel you're picked on, these are the enrollment declines in Berkshire County, same sort of thing, significant drop off. Just so I put this up just so you don't feel like it's just an 8-town Franklin County problem. Just finally, a little bit more about us. We do work in 4 domains. We do collaborative projects. So we're running a 5 high school portrait of a graduate bar foundation project. You all have a bar foundation project in your high school, which is fantastic. Your middle school, high school, I should say. We run professional development across Berkshire County, and actually we do scoop in folks from Franklin County and surrounding counties. We do networking advocacy. We have obviously been highly supportive of the Rural Commission and the Rural Report that have been generated. I've been in the State House testifying in support of that, so we feel like advocating for rural is going to be part of the solution, not the whole solution, but part of the solution as we look forward. And then obviously we do this research towards partnerships, which is really what we're focused on with you all. But we also think that there certainly will be a networking advocacy component of this work, and there will also be possible collaborative projects. I'll just jump right into the work. In this presentation, again, will be available if you want to look at it more, and, take your time and look at it more carefully. But you've done a lot of prior work, and one of the first exercises that we are doing is we're synthesizing all that work identifying themes, what sorts of questions have been asked, what have folks found, where were recommendations made successfully or not. And then additionally, we're looking at some literature around regionalization efforts so you understand sort of what are some of the best practices as relate to, how regionalization or consolidation or, sort of collaborative work can roll out in a particular area like this one. So these are all loaded on the website if you're interested, but I just wanted to really call out the fact that some great work has been done in this region. And I always say it's like, it's like the scientific process. You're constantly building on what's done before. And so we feel like this study will be building upon work that was done previously. We're going to sort of tackle this work in sort of 5 steps, but they're not necessarily sequential, but we're going to do a lot of analysis, like I said, a lot of data. We're going to be using the data to make projections into the future. Obviously, projections into the future are imperfect. If they were perfect, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on a beach somewhere. So we will project with certain assumptions and parameters that we share very intently with folks, but projecting into the future so you know what's happening. We're looking at options. That'll likely happen as we get towards the summer. What I say, the universe of possibilities. We want to basically capture every single idea that folks may have or that our team has around possible solutions for this region, and then ultimately we'll be evaluating those options for which ones seem to hold the highest promise. And then we'll be modeling those using sort of that grounded financial and enrollment work to say, if we were to do these particular solutions, these options, what would the impact be for education in the region and for fiscal stability, both for the district and for the towns. And as I mentioned before, the engagement work is going to be foundational to all this. We're doing this initial work, collecting information, but we'll be coming back out when we have some ideas, saying to people, okay, we have this subset of ideas that seems to hold some level of promise. What do you think? What's your reaction to it? And, there were some things in South County that were non-negotiable, so we had a hard time working through. When you talk about, and I'm always careful about what I say in these early presentations because people will hear bits and pieces, and when I say, if you were to think about closing schools, it doesn't mean that we're going to be recommending closing schools, but when you do that, that's a real big decision, culturally, emotionally, traditionally, from all the things that, these are centerpieces of town, so those are things that we have to think about. And getting feedback from the community on what they're open to is, and maybe what they're not, which we tend to refer to as non-negotiables, is important.
If your presentation is
Oh, sorry. I have no plan here.
Lots of little chickens.
Okay. So we're going to be working in a number of domains. We got a great project management team, the chairs of the 2 school committees, and your superintendent, who have been incredible to work with out of the gate, just fantastic. We're going to look at educational quality. We're going to go much deeper on ed quality than they went in the phase 1 study. We have a couple of specialists going in, one focused on elementary, one on the middle high school, really to look at what's happening. We're not leaning in to find fault or flaw. We're leaning in to find possibilities and explore opportunities, looking at finance operations, personnel, and obviously a circle of community engagement. And then looking at, are there regulatory things? We found, again, in southern Berkshire, there are some regulations that ultimately get in the way, can be disincentives to doing this sort of work. And so these are all things that our team will be tackling. And again, the ultimate question is, are there solutions here? Is there a solution, or are there multiple solutions? And that's really what we'll be heading into. So the work is going to be broken into 3 stages. I always confuse everyone when I talk about phases and stages, but our work, the Berk 12 work, will be broken into 3 stages, and I'm going to make these really easy to remember. The first stage is going to happen between now and the end of the school year, and that's where we're just building all the context, doing all the data look, this initial community engagement, and really understanding what's happening in the district. Stage 2 will occur likely over the summer. That's where we're going to sort of evaluate all the data and start to generate this universe of options and evaluate those options. And then stage 3 will be the modeling of what we think are the highest promise options. This particular steering committee has asked us to bring not a recommendation, but a set of possibilities back to them. And so that's what our intention is. And so the full work plan is online. I think it's relatively detailed, and it has deliverables at each of the stages, which ultimately, obviously, we will be flexible if the steering committee wants us to go left or right, but this is the game plan as it stands right now. And so the ultimate report will be delivered probably sometime in the spring of 2025, and if there were any sort of decision points that needed to be made leading into a town meeting, then we would try to back that up to make sure that that could happen. I'm not going to get into the details of stage 1, but it's all in the work plan, so I just flipped through here. And we've done a lot of work, just made a list of things that we've been working on, but I did want to just bring to your attention that one thing we've been working on, which is highlighted here, is the formation of the steering committee, which really was managed mostly from our leadership team, Martha and Ellie and Cheryl, but we do have a steering committee that has been formed, and we had our first meeting on February 3rd. Our next meeting is on March 21st, I believe, and these individuals represent all the towns, although we're working on a couple of holes to fill some seats, but these folks will act as thought partners. They'll be critiquing our work, providing feedback. They'll be helping us to evaluate the options, and then acting as advocates, communicating to and from the towns and various stakeholder groups. These are the members, and so again, I'm really happy that Paula from Buckland is here with us, and then obviously Martha and Ellie serve as the sort of co-leadership chairs, as the chairs of the 2 school committees. So we have open seats. Am I up to speed now?
Actually, as of last night, we may have that filled.
Okay, great, good. So we're getting close. So, but the other thing I want to mention is that in addition to the steering committee, we're also going to work on developing what we're calling advisory teams, and these advisory teams will be organized around particular topic areas. And so the obvious topic areas out of the gate will be finance, educational quality, and community engagement, the outreach work. So probably the community engagement advisory team will be the first one to launch, because that's really a focus of the work early on. As we get further in and start collecting data on ed quality and finance, we will bring people to the table. And I really want to emphasize that my experience in South County was that these groups were incredibly helpful. We found in the area of finance, as an example, that we had some folks who live in the community who have expertise in finance. It's their educational training. They have, they're former CFOs or CEOs, or they're town managers, or they're on the finance committee, and they just love to sort of dig into numbers and do modeling. So that finance group in South County was instrumental in helping us to develop our methodologies and then sort of test those methodologies. They were the critics, and so our methodologies held up when we brought them out into the public, and it was because of the work at the advisory level. So we are seeking folks to signal that they would want to serve on these advisory committees. And there is a link on the website. I just took a picture of it. It's right on the front page right now. It says advisory teams. Click here. You click there. I just ask you to put your name in. You've already received one. Yay. So we encourage folks, if they want to serve on any advisory teams, to let us know. And then our team is composed of I won't get too much into my background, but I'm a lifelong K-12 educator, teacher, high school principal, school superintendent in 3 districts. I was a dean at a state college. But everyone on this list either has strong educational experience and someone I trust and really I've worked with throughout my career, or has very specialized knowledge, like the Abrahams Group in school finance. Russell Dupre, who's your lawyer, who helped us in South County to develop the regional agreement. where we have some folks who are going to be working with us on the team, but I wanted you to know who they were. And then really the last part of the presentation was we'd love to hear from the board, from the finance committee, from any of the folks in Buckland who are willing to give us some early feedback. I sent you a link to a survey. I know in these meetings we don't have a lot of time really to have discussion about these prompts. So we did put a survey together, and it's really easy. It's not your typical survey. It just has the question just as an open text box. So if you want to write 2 words, write 2 words. If you want to write 4 paragraphs, write 4 paragraphs. But we'd love to get some feedback, and the questions basically are these questions. Basically, where do you see as strengths of the district? Where you see challenges or tension points? What would you like our team to take into consideration as we launch us? Are there any particular questions? So with that said, and I will send Heather tomorrow, again, the presentation in a direct link to the survey, and you're welcome to share that with the board. You're welcome to put it on your town board if you have it. We are looking at asking all the boards to help us to definitely circulate information. So we're about to put out our first monthly brief. We want to put a monthly update out every single month to say, hey, here's what we're working on. And so if there are listservs or Facebook groups or homegrown newsletters, again, we found all that in South County, let us know, and we want to make sure we can circulate to those. Okay?
If I was to print out the survey for those who may not be comfortable with it online, is there a way to scan those? And
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're happy to do that too. This is sort of a what I call the softball survey, the big questions coming in the door, right? We're going to do a more targeted survey before the close of the school year, which is going to reflect some of the things we're collecting early. So as we're hearing themes and ideas emerge, there'll be a survey that goes out likely towards the end of May. And we are going to probably do that as a direct mailing, so there will be both an electronic version and paper copy, because we want to make sure that as many folks complete it as possible. So I am going to stop talking and take any questions or comments or thoughts or observations. That my time is yours.
Are the students in the survey?
They are actually, students are included in the survey. So we have, we're trying to figure out whether we're going to have a couple surveys. So what we did in the survey in South County is we created decision trees where there were some core questions, but then depending on your role, who you were, you got kicked in particular question sets, right? But we are thinking we probably want a separate survey for alum, and we probably want to we're actually going to have to do a very targeted survey for families who choose not to attend the Mahawk Trail or Hollamont School District. So we know folks who are choicing out, attending private, homeschooling. We'd like to collect some information from them. And that sounded to me like when we came in the door that was something that the steering committee and the community wanted to learn more about.
You guys have any questions? No? Yeah, no, that was very informative. I did get the email from you the other day. I haven't had a chance to dive into all the survey questions yet, but I did start perusing it a little bit, so I definitely look forward to getting into that. Yeah, hopefully this study goes the full distance, unlike, past ones that have been done. And we can certainly get to where we need to with these schools. So, does anybody in the public have any questions while we have Jake here? No? Heather, anything?
Jake and I have had a couple of good back and forth, so I'm glad that we're able to have this presentation this evening and introduce each other. So it's a good project.
And don't be shy. If you have questions or you want me to come back out and give me an update at some point, your role as a select board, as town leaders, is really important. Because ultimately, solutions will, you'll be reviewing and thinking about and ultimately probably endorsing or not to your residents. So your feedback is critically important. And again, I would say that to your finance group too, if there are folks who have input, more than happy to really hear it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your time today.
All right. We are a little bit early right now. We're about another 15 minutes till we have Allison Cornish.
Allison isn't here yet, so we could
Yep.
move on to the next, not the next appointment.
Yeah. Let's move. So we will move on and try to get through a couple of these agenda items. We've got the fiscal 25 budget update and employee cost of living increase discussion. We have a spreadsheet that has comparisons of 3% and 4% COLAs, as well as 2% COLA and a 50-cent and 75-cent increases for each employee. So I think Heather's
You want
can
to
maybe
see if
dive into that a little bit.
So one of the issues that we've been struggling, well, that most small communities have been struggling with, is how to accurately or how to fairly compensate those positions that are traditionally low wage earners. You find that mostly in your highway, your wastewater, your non-office positions. There's something that has sort of been gaining some traction in the communities, and that is to do a hybrid of a COLA and an actual dollar amount on top of that COLA. It's a little more progressive. It will bring your lower wage earners up more quickly over the next couple of years. It's been modeled for you at a 2% with a 50% increase on top of that. A 2%? 50 cent? 50 cent? What did I say? Did I say percent?
I'd like 50%.
I'll take 50%. No, 2%
I'll
at a
give Larry a
75-cent increase. And then the more traditional method of a 3% COLA and a 4% COLA. You'll see on the sheets that you have sort of stapled together, and I'll try to get this up on the screen so the people seeing at home can follow along. I don't know how, give me just a second. The 2% with the 50 cent is the most in line as a total budget impact to a 4% COLA. That is, within a few dollars of each other. The difference for a 4% COLA overall to the budget is $30,279, and the 2% with a 5 cent is $29,590. But where you see the difference is if you look out across the different positions, you'll see that, for example, highway, their overall increase is in the 4.17, 4.25. So they're going to come up a little bit more, whereas the positions that are at a higher dollar an hour rate, their actual increases are in the mid threes. Anyway, it's a different way of looking at it. I thought it was worth bringing to your attention to see if that's something that you are interested in implementing. The Finance Committee has not had a chance to look at it yet, but they, so it is your position, it's your vote to make, but the way that we look at salaries has to change in this job market, and this is a very good step in that direction, and it certainly would go a long way to show those who are out doing the heavy lifting that we recognize and continue to recognize. I think the Finance Committee and the Select Board have consistently been working hard to bring those salaries up, but this takes it another step further, and I think Larry's got his hand up, Clint.
We did discuss this last night at our meeting, and we feel, Finance Committee, this 2 plus 50 cent is a really good step forward in terms of not being regressive, but actually progressive. Lower part of the town do better. And so we like it, given that it has a very marginal difference in our budget. We think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, you can see that nobody's under 3%. It says 2% plus 50, you had your mind goes to 2%, but when you look at the numbers,
Right.
Town administrator, you don't count on this.
I'm just in there for,
Everyone's at least 330, you know?
everybody, I don't count in the COLAs, no COLA for me. But I put it on screen here where you can see that the 2% or the 75 cent, which is sort of being modeled in other communities, I think that might be more than what we can reach in this year's budget. So I did ask Kara to model it at the 2%, 50 cent, 2%, 50 cent. And that's a little bit more reasonable and manageable in the budget, and again, comes in really close to the 4% COLA that's being offered in the town of Shelburne and the other communities that are abutting Buckland. So
Yeah, it does come very
to
close.
keep us in line with our neighbors, it's reasonable and approachable in the budget.
Okay. How deep were you guys able to kind of dig into this last night at your meeting?
Well, we knew we were looking at some alternative percentages, 3%, 4%. And so when this came up as an option, we looked at it very favorably because it has a very positive impact on our budget.
Right.
And so it's a win-win. We felt that it was affecting the low-wage earning portion of the town and not doing any damage to the budget, which is almost so we liked the 2% plus the 50 cents.
Okay.
And by damage, he means not any significant damage. You'll see that Kara, because she's such an overachiever, she, on the second to the last 2 pages, she's brought that out over the next couple of fiscal years. So we're able to sort of track it and see what the impact would be in FY 26, 27, 28. She could just keep going for years, but I shut her down at 3 years.
Squish her.
Squish her. That's about enough. So,
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of sort of looking over the numbers here, I haven't really had a chance to overly digest it. I mean, even with the 2% and 75 cent increase, you're looking at what, another 9,000 for a payroll budget. I mean, even that's not, I mean, over time though, that would just,
right.
It's not over time, but in the scheme of the whole budget.
Right.
We don't want to bump up against that levy limit.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
Thank you.
We don't feel like we have the money, honestly.
We'll always like you, don't worry.
We have a lot of faith, I've said that many times, a lot of faith in our finance board. I mean, they really do. It's, not being a financial person myself, so, but,
Yes, you guys are very good with the town's numbers, so.
they are.
All right. I mean, is this something that we needed to vote on tonight?
It would
That you were
be
looking for,
ideal if
right?
you could. If you are not comfortable doing so, I guess I would just ask that you acknowledge that that's what we'll start modeling in the budget, knowing that we'll come back to it and adjust at your March 13th meeting, if you want to wait until then to take a formal, but we just have to have something that we're modeling in the budget so that we can see how it fits in with the other requests.
Right. Do you guys have any?
When you have good people that work for the town, you want to keep them.
No, I agree. And I think trying to do that, and then obviously, staying inside of our budget, we don't
Exactly.
want to overextend ourselves too quickly either. So I'm in support of the 2% with the 50-cent
Might as well.
addition. Mary, do you have anything that?
I think that's the one
I mean, do you
that fits, that's the one that fits in the best with,
I could look these over 10 times and I could smile and say the same thing, but I appreciate the work, and I would like to take your recommendation. I always take yours to heart. I appreciate all the work you guys put into it, so. I'm looking at 2% plus the 50, which it seems to fit.
Do we want to vote on this tonight? Do you want to?
I feel comfortable, believe it or not, I'm not going to get any smarter over the next month of these.
well, if there was a way that we could show you the variances without so many columns, we would. I asked Kara for a summary, and even the summary had 12 columns.
That's still very
So-
good. It is good. I really can understand it, okay, so don't worry.
So I would make a motion to accept the budget update for the 2% COLA plus the 50-cent increase to keep everybody putting their numbers together.
We're going to need our best formula people on that Google Doc. Do we have that?
I second it.
Any further discussion? No. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, none? All right, now you have your numbers.
Just think what a bag of groceries costs.
Oh, I know.
I don't want to.
And Allison is,
Yep.
Allison's here.
We'll get that one out of the way, so we'll knock back to our 5:45. We have Allison Cornish here from our Buckland Climate Coordinator and Municipal Vulnerability Program. Allison's going to present a quick update on our MVP work and an introduction to the next phase of funding requirements for future MVP grants, which will rely heavily on community engagement. Hello, Allison.
And yet other guys. Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. How are you today? Yeah. So MVP, which does not stand for Most Valuable Player, although we'd all like that it...
Allison, if we could just get you to turn a little bit, because
Sure.
we're also trying to pick up for Zoom, so
Yeah.
people might just have a hard time hearing.
Okay. How's this? Let me turn my back on
There you
you.
go.
But if you focus it too much that way, I can't hear it.
Yeah.
So
Just this, right?
Can we just do the panoramic?
Right.
So keep in mind that that mic only works for the falls cable, and it does not have any, it doesn't help the rest of us.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway,
Speak loudly.
We are not prepared for this.
Technology.
So I want to unpack a little bit of this acronym. You may be more familiar with this program than I think you are, but every time I unpack it for others, I learn more for myself. So the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, so there's actually 2 Ps in there, is something that that Buckland has been involved in since 2018. I haven't been around that long, so maybe you haven't, and you understood that. This comes out of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs at the Massachusetts level. And in order to become an MVP community, one must launch a community engagement process, which happened in 2018. And there are MVP program, preparedness program communities across the state. Shelburne's just become one. Conway has been for a while. And Coleraine is, et cetera. But the idea behind this is, how do we sort of get ahead of some of the adaptation that all of our communities are going to need to do around climate change? That is, increased precipitation events, flooding events, increased temperatures of both water and land and air that are substantially changing our climate. So in 2018, when this was launched here in Buckland, there was a community-wide engagement project, and that allowed the community to say, well, there are the top hazards that Buckland can identify, and there are also the top strengths that the community can say, well, we've got these things. Do they begin to outweigh the hazards, or can they address the hazards? Where are the gaps, and what is it that we want to pursue more funding for, more plans for? So after that process, the community really zeroed in on the Crescent Brook watershed area. Prime area for flooding around Tropical Storm Irene. Of course, the Deerfield was as well, but it was really identifiable around the Crescent of loss of agricultural soils from the farms there, changes to the culverts, amount of stream straightening because the flow was so high, beginning to affect the infrastructure like the bridges and the abutments along the river, and and repeat. This is just going to happen as the climate continues to change. So the last few years that the town has received funding through this program have all gone towards the Crescent Brook area and really beginning to design our way towards some solutions there. So the end of this particular round of funding, we should have some designs that we can begin to be engaged with the State Department of Transportation, MassDOT, and say this is what a bridge might look like that is going to be rated to address some of the increased precipitation that we're going to do. There's also a lot of land and property owner education built into this grant. So what are some of the different practices that landowners could be doing to reduce the amount of erosion, loss of topsoils? What kind of riparian buffers could be planted with native species to begin to cool the water temperature and continue to have Crescent be the #1 trout brook that it really is, a nursery that it is. All of this funding that has come in from the state has been incredibly helpful to the town, and we are trying to position ourselves so that the funding that we've gotten can leverage more funding. So our partners in this have been FERCOG, that has helped us a lot with the public education piece, and GSA, which has been doing the engineering piece. And they also have a subcontractor that's been doing a lot of the geological work as well. I was really immensely pleased to be invited to go to the MMA, the Massachusetts Municipal Association annual meeting last month in January in Boston, and talk with people about what's going on in their communities around climate. Oh my goodness. The presentation by Lemonster about what happened there on September 11th. So 9 inches of rain in a single day. $35 million of damage in 9 hours. And that's with the dams holding. That's without the dams letting go. So I couldn't have imagined a more direct experience of, this is why we have to get ahead of some of this work. This is why we have to be doing what we're doing. So what I've been doing right now, my job is to sort of be the conversation partner with the state, our consultants, the town and the property owners and FERCog to make sure that everybody knows what everybody's doing and we communicate as well as we can. To communicate with the Shelburne MVP people so that we can coordinate some of our work together, and eventually also Ashfield and Hawley, because of course they're part of that same watershed, and to position ourselves for MVP 2.0, which is coming down the pike towards us in the next year or so, and will require more community engagement in order to leverage more funds. Eventually, what Heather and I have talked about is to begin to draw more and more climate-related work here in Buckland under one umbrella. So we could be MVP alongside green communities, alongside some of the energy committee's work, alongside the finance committee's work, so that we can continue to tap particularly this infrastructure and Inflation Reduction Act money that's coming from the feds through the state and to us, and we can continue to work on not just mitigation, but adaptation plans. So that's a little bit of what I've been doing since I came on in, I think, October or November.
It's quite a bit of a little bit, so good, so thank you.
You've hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Well, I have incredible tutors with the planning and zoning board and conservation commission.
They're all good, this town. I said it many times, and I'll sing their praises all the time. They're good.
Yeah, there has been a lot of work going on with the whole Crescent Brook watershed, so it's good to see that continuing. You know,
And as we move MVP from its current state and more into the MVP 2.0 with the community outreach and the conversations that will need to happen with property owners, it's really wonderful to have somebody that has the bandwidth and the time to be able to go out and have those conversations, report back. Allison speaks both languages fluidly, and it's just been a tremendous asset and a relief to me to know that the program can move forward, and with Allison taking the lead in the initiative with this community outreach portion. It's just not something that I would be able to have time to do, and really I don't have the background, but she does, and can really do it justice. GZA and FERCog continue to be great partners, but they can only do so much too. And they're not the ones who are going to be meeting with people in their backyards and at their kitchens and having these conversations. And I do have a couple of new names for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
Anyways, and I love the idea of bringing green communities, which is also morphing into less of a weatherization and more into a decarbonization mode. That's certainly, I can get my head around window inserts, but that next level is just not something that I can carve out enough time. So thank you to the board and the finance committee for still supporting this position. It's currently grant funded, but as time goes on, we may need to look at how we supplement that grant funding as Allison's role increases. And we're only in every minute of her time is just, we're going to get back so much more from as she positions us to get more and more grant funds. So,
Yeah, well, and in addition to the grant funds, which are hugely helpful, and they're sitting right there right now, you know, we just want to tap them as much as we can. We're also really thinking about what is it that doesn't need money that can go forward. So, for example, the Shelburne MVP program has started these offers and needs markets. They launched one at the Shelburne Falls Library, at the Arms Library, I think 2 months ago. Last month it was up at the Congregational Church in Shelburne. The next one is going to be at the Buckland Firehouse on, I should have this, March 7th, I believe it is. Is that right? March 10th. It's March 10th. And this is really an opportunity for the community to come together and say, I have this skill, I have this opportunity, I have this means that I can offer to the community. And these are some of the things that I need. So it's really about building neighborhood cohesion and integration. It's free to come to these offers and needs markets. I've been trained as a facilitator now, fingers crossed. We'll be doing this one, and the next two are in Buckland. The one at the Firehouse in March and the one in April will be at the Art Garden. And the first one was attended by so many people that the Arms couldn't handle it on one floor. They had to have like 2 sessions, the downstairs session, the upstairs session. So we're also looking at that. I don't always want to be sitting in front of you and saying, we need more money, we need more money. I want to be sitting in front of you and saying, here's an opportunity for us to go forward and do this work in really creative ways. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Is every town, I mean, how many towns are part of this program?
That's a great question. Do you know how many towns are part of this?
part of MVP?
Yeah. I want to say somewhere around 100 out of 351 municipalities.
Yeah.
And more rural areas than non-rural areas.
But it is interesting, the different projects that MVP in the eastern part of the state, the projects that they focus on, and the projects that we focus on, it's night and day.
Like what? Give me an example.
I'm not going to be able to pull, I was just looking through it, I'm like, how does that qualify for municipal vulnerability work? You know, I mean, it's more, buildings and construction, and whereas we're just trying to keep our water, at a reasonable level.
Where it belongs.
Exactly. Yeah, and, Shelburne is starting their program this year, and, we've already initiated some great collaboration, because obviously the river is, separates us only so much.
Yeah.
So,
Do we know who's going to be heading that for Shelburne?
Yes, Tricia from the, yeah. What's Tricia's last name? I
It's
forget.
a hyphenated name.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, I can tell you in a second.
So she comes from she's in the planning board. I don't think she's the chair of the planning board. She's on the planning board, and she's taken on the responsibility for that.
Yeah, we work together on the two town news.
Yeah. And she's been very, very anxious to cooperate. Heather and I had a chance to go to their launch event, which was great because neither of us had been here for Buckland's launch event. We could really have a chance to see it.
I'm going to probably not pronounce this correctly. It's Iakovoni Biagi.
Yeah, that one. That's right. That's right.
Well, that's good because it gives you somebody else to be able to partner up with that's local as well. So,
Exactly.
and maybe team up on projects and
That makes sense.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I hope that I'm a frequent visitor here for these short amount of times. I had a great opportunity to meet with Chief Guyette and members of the Conservation Commission. And the question that I'm really turning to people is, where are you seeing climate show up? How is it affecting the part of the town that you are passionate about, that you're charged with overseeing? With Herb, we talked a lot about how unimproved roads in towns that don't have the freeze cycle from winters in the same way anymore are becoming more unstable for these incredible precipitation events, and that's a real issue for emergency management. He also talked about the amount of windfall that we're seeing in our forests that are coming from insect infestations, and therefore there's more risk for fire, and a fire getting out of control. And also, it's much harder to get his equipment into a fire area because of that amount of windfall. So tapping each, sort of area of the town and saying, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What is it that we need to be paying attention to? And how can we address it is part of my work.
I see my friend Mike Slawinski back there from Coleraine, and he'll tell you about dirt road. My sons happen to live on Thompson Road and up in Heath and 8A and they are mud pits, more so the last 2 years than ever. Just incredible.
We're in mud season 3.
Mud season.
Yes, it's
Mud season has pretty much been all winter.
mud scene, the revenge. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been tough. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you very much
Thank you for
for your
the update.
time.
Thank you for coming in.
And please stay in touch. I'm at Climate at Buckland. And
We're building the dome, with the dome's being started, so.
that's right, exactly.
It's one option.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to our next appointment, we have Brian McHugh.
He is on the Zoom here.
Okay. There he is, okay. Hi, Brian. So we have Brian with the Franklin County Regional Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Here to speak about...
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, yes.
Hey, I just had a question. Do you guys have a sign-in sheet by any chance for the meetings?
We don't, but I can circulate one.
That's okay. Is there a way to get we're going to take a screenshot, but is there a way to get the audience in the screenshot? It's allowed to take screenshots for public hearings now. Is there, you guys have an owl or something that goes to the audience or not?
I don't have an owl, but
Heather tried that and it flew away, so...
it did. I opened the window for it. Brian, I'll make a list of everybody that's here for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Brian McHugh, the Director of Community Development at the Franklin County Regional Housing and Redevelopment Authority. We're here tonight to have a public hearing regarding the FY 2024 Community Development Block Grant application that we are preparing on behalf of the town. I will read the legal notice first, so that's okay. So the town of Buckland holds this joint public hearing on Tuesday, February 27, 2024, from Buckland Town offices, 15 State Street, Shelburne Falls, Mass, and via Zoom to solicit public input in response to the town's submission of an FY 2024 Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant application to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, also known as EOHLC, on behalf of the towns of Buckland, whose The CBT program is administered by the Massachusetts Department of Executive Housing and Local Communities, with towns, smaller towns, enter into a competitive grant around monies allocated to the state, and EOHLC, as we'll call it, that takes applications and scores them into competitive round, as I said, and awards these grants to different communities. Proposed activity, as I met with you back in January, talk about the housing rehab program. We are proposing to just have one activity in this grant application. I know that you've funded the food pantry for a number of years, but as it stated at the information meeting back in January, they are funded through 2 years, so it would need to be included this year in this application. But again, we're looking to include a housing rehab program that will include $1,030,000 in loans across the 3 towns. Our target is to rehab 16 units, 7 units at a maximum of $70,000 a unit, and 9 units at $60,000 a unit. There's different thresholds here to go into a higher level tier. If you have the project includes lead paint remediations, septic replacement, asbestos, well drilling, historic preservation, or accessibility work, and you can go to the $70,000 cap. We've been running this program for many years. In the last few years, the average cost of the project is about $53,000. So we should be able to hit that new goal and possibly exceed it. Right now, we have a wait list. You'll see that Buckland has 15 people on a wait list right now. That's based on people who were on the wait list prior to us coming possibly back in January, and then we did a mailing in the 3 towns, and these are the numbers we have so far. So Buckland was 15, Coleraine 4, and Ashfield 3. Anyway, the rehab funds are loaned to income eligible owners. In order to be income eligible, you have to be considered low to moderate income. That's 80% of the area median income. That's about $55,000 for a 1-person household, and it goes up about $6,000 per person. So a family of 4 is about $80,000. You have to be under that income level to qualify. Loans are given out as 100% 0% just want to make one more note before we move on here, and I open it up to any questions. Right now, we have agreements with Buckland, Buckland, and Ashfield to manage a revolving loan fund. That is a fund that uses paybacks from previous housing rehab loans with the towns. And we've loaned that money out, when projects come up, and there's a current grant going on. But we do hold money in-house for you for those paybacks. Right now, Town of Buckland has $35,743 in it. Town of Coleraine has $63,170, and Town of Ashland has $59,958, for a total of $159,000. That money will need to be, if the grant's awarded, that money will need to be posted in the grants and sort of augment the grants, and we usually do an additional project in each of these towns. The money has to be spent in each of those towns. We can't sort of across the whole grant or across town lines. But that would be posted in the grant if it's awarded, and that money will be the first out the door, so that we'll spend that first. And that could change too, maybe payouts in the interim between now and when grants are announced sometime late summer. So we'll adjust that as needed. But anyway, the application's due March 25th. We've been working hard on this. We've just completed some windshield surveys, in each of the towns where we go around and sort of do an informal rating of houses from your car, from your windshield, and sort of note any kind of deficiency that you can see from the windshield. So we try to get about 20% in each of the towns. We've been doing that over the last couple of weeks in each, Coleraine, Buckland, and Ashland. So we'll complete that soon. And again, we're well into preparing this application, due in 3 weeks from yesterday. So anyway, that's it. If there's any comments or concerns or questions from residents or the board or anybody there, I'm here to answer them. Questions?
Yes, if you could, just so we can hear you for the TV.
Marielle Alcaz, 44 Green Street. I was curious if the additional funding you have can be put in a pot to help the homeowners pay their new property taxes, because those will quadruple.
If you pay for property taxes that are increased as a result of the work that gets done in the house?
Yeah, for instance, I purchased a home that was a full gut and renovation, and our property taxes quadrupled. And so I'm just wondering if there are people that are struggling financially to even fix their homes, how are they going to afford the increase in those property taxes? And if that additional funding could be used to assist them in paying that.
Are you talking about the additional funding that we hold for the towns of the $159,000 I just talked about?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of rules around what's considered program income. This is considered program income. I have not seen that anywhere any program is going to pay property tax. The only thing that's these sort of soft costs that I've seen paid for is they could pay for up to 1
like this, the improvements that they help you with is like, if you have a failed septic system or asbestos, I don't believe that will change the property value. Or, you know, someone's well dried up, that's not like, you know, renovating the building or whatever.
Maybe. I thought these were like pretty big renovations.
It's a different.
We're talking about, I thought it was 70,000 per unit, so it's pretty substantial.
But septic can cost you $125,000.
Yeah, I know, I've had septic before, actually twice. Yeah, definitely.
These are more like,
I mean, it will, I'm sorry, it will depend on the nature of
Right.
the repairs or renovations you do, like, yes, you might spend $40,000 in a septic system, but it isn't necessarily going to increase the value of your house by that dollar for dollar. It's just one of those things you expect to have, in a house, or, so there's always that dollar for dollar added value. It does depend on what you do. You put in new windows, which we do all the time. You might increase your value. So each town differs. I can't say exactly what an increase will be, but I don't see that you're going to, if you borrow $70,000, that you're going to automatically go up $70,000 in your valuation.
but that's the max, is 70,000, and the project might not cost 70,000, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
Janice Fluriel, Monroe Avenue. I'm sort of speaking from the Council on Aging perspective. It sounds like right now there are maybe more people on the wait list than the project can actually handle if it's only 16. And I'm curious how you decide who does become eligible for it. And also, does your organization work at all with the state's home modification loan program that I keep getting postcards for? Thank you.
So the first question, I'll answer the first question first. That is it. So when we have a wait list, it's people that have not been qualified yet. They've put in, they've seen the program, they think they qualify, and we see that there's a drop off. There's at least a 25% drop off on what we see from wait list applications. So they either don't qualify, they don't want to go through the program, they've moved, they've done the improvements by the time the program rolls around. So there could be quite a bit of drop-offs there. There's a limit how much we can ask for, and we do, tend to do regional applications for smaller towns, and so that there's maybe, 16 units is about the max you can do with what's available for 3 towns. They did just increase that cap at $40,000 to $50,000 up to this past year. So, and unfortunately, they've level funded this program, so that you're going to see fewer projects done. That's just what projects cost. The first thing we'll do when if you get awarded is to send out applications to all the people that are on the wait list, and we operate first come, first served basis, at first, and then we get didn't qualify for this particular program. But yes, we are that agency that's been sending you postcards, so.
Janice Sorensen, Depot Road. I was wondering if when you say wait list, do you mean a single list, or, because I think of wait list as the people who are on a list that if somebody in the program drops out, they get that spot, or do you just mean the people on the list? And there's 16 to be granted and there's 15 on the list, I think, so does that mean there's space for one more, or you're 15 over?
It's actually 16 across the 3 towns. So yes, it's 15. We didn't really know. I mean, you know, if it turns out that there's, so as far as the wait list goes, it isn't like one person is going through this. If there's money in town to loan, then people that are on the wait list are going to, you know, we send out everything, you know, and we should back up here. It isn't like we process one application at a time. It's sort of an arduous process to put, you know, to qualify people. So they gotta get all their income stuff in, all their, you know, mortgage statements, bank statements, you know, deeds, you know, all these things. So we don't wait until someone's there. So we send out applications to everybody, and as they come in, we start processing them.
So when you say wait list, you actually you mean the list.
Yeah,
I think you might change that vocabulary, it's confusing. You might not call it wait list because it's a little confusing. I think that it's the number of people over the allotted slots. Like a wait list for a college, for example.
It's always called a wait list, I guess. I don't know if it's a good point though, Janice. And we'll take it under advisement. Thank you.
How do people find out about this program?
We'll advertise it. There's a lot of it's word of mouth. We're connected with councils on aging. We're connected with boards of health, FERCog, building departments. Often best to come to us through that avenue. But we'll put an ad in the paper. We'll probably put something in the West County News, post it on your websites. And oftentimes, if we feel like we have more funds that are available to owners, then we'll do a town-wide mailing sometime in the middle of the grant. But right now, you know, just the fact that there's more people that are on the wait list or our list than what we can serve right now, then we're not necessarily doing any kind of marketing at the beginning of if we get funded at the beginning of the grant period until we sort of process those folks that are on the wait list. Otherwise, if we advertise it and we get a bunch more people in, we're going to have too many applications. People are going to be waiting months before we can get them. So we'd rather address the folks that are on the wait list right now, or out the gate.
We do have some of the postcards in the town clerk's office.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Brian.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
We did put some postcards in the town clerk's office, as people are...
That's great. I mean, we did do the mail, we did send out postcards so we could build up the list, and, you know, but some, you know, and the people, you know, don't take it down. You know, we're always interested. I look at this, we've been running these programs since the early 80s, and there's been a lot of time, you know, like, I don't know the number here, how many times Buckland has been involved, or any of the 2 towns that are part of this. But we, you know, we sort of see this as a rolling program where it's you know, a continuation. So if it turns out that, you know, a whole bunch of people are coming from any one of the 3 towns, and the money isn't there this year, then we'll approach you to include it in next year's application also, you know. And so, you know, there's certain towns, sort of the larger towns, Montague or Orange, where we've been running housing rehab program year after year after year. We hope that, you know, we can continue to meet the need that you know, is always there in these towns. And maybe that, you know, these 3 towns have not, you know, been involved in a housing rehab program for a few years. And oftentimes what we see when that happens is that the word of mouth that's out there, it's like, oh, you know, you had some work done, why don't you get this work done? And we start getting people calling in, and that sort of
Any other questions?
Are you going to be just allowing, like 8 from one town, or is it going to be 5, 5, and 5? Just curious.
No, it's gonna be more weighted towards the town that has the most people on the wait list. So I think we were talking about doing targeting 9 in Buckland, and then 4 and 3 in the other 2 towns, based on there's I know there's only 4 on the Coleraine wait list and 3 on after the list right now, but we're still getting things and trickling in. It turns out that's all there is. We may reconsider it, but we will weight it towards a town that has the most, however it plays out for the different towns. But if it's more for Buckland, then we'll include more in Buckland. Having said that, those are our unit goals. If after a certain period of time, after the grant has been running, if one town is lagging behind another, after 9 months from the grant award, if one has, might stick with 15 Buckland and really we're only getting 7 applications because people either don't qualify or they've done, like I said before, they've done the work or they're not interested, too burdensome, whatever it is, then we can cross over town lines and use the grant money in other towns if there's a need in other towns. But our goal is to hit those goals. We have to report to the state how, on those, our unit goals and where, the status of them. So what we've done in order to meet the goals in those communities.
One more kind of big question, which is this is loans. Did you say zero income loans or did you say the money's given to the people? I guess I'm confused.
Yeah, they're loans. Yes, they're loans that are at 0% interest. They're deferred payment loans, meaning that it's recorded against a property, the loan amount. It sits there like any other mortgage does, and the amount on that mortgage gets reduced by 15%, not 15%, 1/15 per year over the course of 15 years. So every year an anniversary date of a loan closing, whatever that is for the particular project, the balance, we call it declining balance loan, the balance on that loan will get reduced or will decline by 1/15 on the anniversary date. So the next year on that anniversary date, it goes down by that number again. So that after 15 years, it turns into essentially a grant, yes, but it's forgiven at that point. So there's a zero balance after 15 years. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Now we gotta go to these which one is. You probably got one there. Yeah, wait.
Let me get to the right one here.
Right. What did you do tonight? Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it. We didn't have anybody online with any questions. All right. So it looks like for tonight, you need the board to vote to authorize the HRA to submit a CDBG application in a maximum amount of $1.375 million on behalf of the towns of Buckland, Coleraine, and Ashfield.
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Bearing none, all in favor? Aye. The board will ask.
3 more votes.
Yep, I'm getting it, don't watch me. I'll also make a motion that the board vote to identify Heather Butler, the Town of Buckland Administrator, as the Environmental Certifying Officer.
Second it.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Also make a motion for the board to vote to authorize signatures on grant application documents. Note, these documents can only be produced once approved budget data is entered in to the EOHLC's grant management system.
Second that.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And the last motion for the board to vote to authorize execution of the fiscal year 24 CDBG contract between the town of Buckland and the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, also known as the EOHLC, if awarded.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, move to close the public hearing at 6:34. All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, everybody.
All right, have a good night. All right. So we are, God, we're almost right on time here.
Scary,
Yeah, with 6:30 appointment with Chris Skelly from the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership, National Park Service Rivers Trail and Conservation Assistance Grant Program application.
Chris is not here.
Chris cannot be here tonight, but you have a brief description of what he would have talked about and a request for a letter of support for a National Park Service grant that he would like to apply for. There's no financial commitment, it's technical assistance to help pick up where the Trails Summit presentation left off, which I understand was really well attended and was well presented. Chris is our Woodlands Partnership representative, and he is doing a great job of making sure that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities. So he will be here after March 13th meeting to discuss, or the March 12th, 13th, to discuss the project in more specifics. But the grant application is due March 1st, so we're hoping that you would sign off on the letter tonight.
Yeah, the signer.
Do we get to hear his statement?
Somebody want to read the letter into the...
Yep. The Town of Buckland enthusiastically supports an application to the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. We recognize that many residents of Buckland treasure the outdoors and deeply value access to trails. The most recent Buckland Open Space and Rec Plan was approved by the state in 2021. A planned priority is to develop more trails for passive recreation such as hiking, cycling, cross-country skiing, and horseback riding, and to increase connectivity of existing trails. We'd very much like to see this recommendation of the plan implemented. Buckland is particularly scenic, rural, and historic community. Residents and the many visitors to West Franklin County very much appreciate the substantial woodlands and agriculture across the town. With little commercial tax base, Buckland and surrounding communities are dependent on the economic impact of tourists. Trails could be an additional economic development strategy, particularly if they connect historic and agricultural areas. With little public land in Buckland, most land is in private ownership. Basically, the only method of increasing trails in Buckland will be through cooperative partnerships with private landowners. While we understand the grant award would be for technical assistance only, we believe that the expertise and experience of planners with the NPS RTCA program will be extremely valuable to our local volunteers spearheading this trail initiative, especially in rural town of our size that does not have a professional town planner. We look forward to partnering on this trails initiative and offering our assistance as needed. Okay. Yep. All right. I've moved to accept a motion of support for for the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. 6:45, now we're ahead of schedule, look at that. We have I think we can probably move into our planning board now. I think we got pretty much everybody here for it. The Buckland Planning Board, short-term rental zoning bylaw and general bylaw.
So the planning board, I'm John Gould, the co-chair of the planning board. Planning board's here tonight to offer you our draft of a general bylaw concerning short-term rentals to act as a companion piece to the zoning bylaw that we, the board, many members of the public, Franklin Council of Government staff, and Town Council have been working on since at least August of 2022. As you're aware, we bring these to your attention in two separate forms upon advice of council. He made clear that a zoning bylaw properly addresses locations and extent of short-term rentals, but such matters as requiring licensing through registration and compliance with codes, regulations, giving a process, defining categories and setting timelines, and establishing complaint and enforcement protocol need to be accomplished through a general bylaw. Council suggests that the town adopt both, as he mentioned other towns have done. As general bylaws are properly the department of the select board, we are bringing them to you, immediately tied in a bow, for your consideration. Since we did not expect you to construct the bylaw yourselves, being that this has been in our wheelhouse all this time, the planning board has been fortunate in the assistance of FAIRCOG's Megan Rhodes, who's brought several examples and recommendations to our discussion, and the results have been shaped and vetted by town council. We're here to recommend these for your approval and inclusion on the warrant. That's some of the mechanics of it. We briefly visit the why. This process was undertaken in response to a clear need as identified in the earlier housing survey and by considerable public participation over the course of both this process and during the discussions leading up to the passage of the previous housing-related bylaws a couple of years ago. The shortest possible summary of the needs I can make in one sentence is the need to find ways to make both the best use of and maintain the availability of housing stock for residents of Buckland of different demographics. If you'll indulge me just a little bit, I guess I'd call this a second stage in the planning board's response to what we've learned and heard since that housing survey. The first stage of our response was to offer tools to the community to expand possibilities, decreasing the required lot size, creating the possibility of village cluster or cottage development, and offering the opportunity for both attached and detached accessory dwelling units. These were approved by town meeting. The second effort is in response to a phenomenon which can be both an opportunity and a threat, the growth of short-term rentals. Up to now, these have not been looked at or addressed in our bylaws. Short-term residential rentals cut both ways in that they can provide welcome or needed income to citizens, but then they can also cut directly against efforts to create or even maintain availability of housing for long-term or would-be long-term residents. As many towns have found, there's a need for this matter to be addressed and given a clear framework for operation in the community. As we normally do, we've looked at many other examples and solutions and have had a long period of discussion and public participation. Zooming out just a bit, the planning board always has to walk the line to try to balance both public and private interests, and in this case, the private interest is, of course, the financial benefits that any individual can get from a short-term rental. The public interest, of course, is the availability of long-term housing. There's a third wrinkle in this particular effort in that we're trying to preserve the availability of either short-term or long-term rental housing stock to be basically limited to the ownership by, mainly limited to ownership by Buckland residents, so that we don't have a situation where many people who do not live in town purchase the properties and exclusively for the purpose of long-term or short-term rentals, and thereby reduce the available housing stock for the people who want to live here. So, going to the documents themselves, in the zoning bylaw draft, I think you will have copies. You'll see the new additions to the use table, separated basically by number of rooms available and owner-occupied status. There are new definitions saying what is and what isn't. There's a new section of performance standards for short-term rentals, dealing with the number of people, noise, lighting, traffic, parking, and compliance with bylaws, health, and building codes. In the general bylaw draft we are submitting, you'll see a purpose and definitions. As mentioned above, it lays out process and timelines, sets out regulations, and identifies complaint process and enforcement information. You will note that the matter of setting fees is deferred to the select board. Briefly, I think it is worthwhile to touch on these, since it's not a very long document, touch on the elements of it. The purpose is 2 sentences: to allow for short-term rentals while ensuring public safety, preventing possible nuisances for abutters, minimizing reductions to available long-term, greater than 31 days, rental housing, and preserving the character of the town's neighborhoods. It will assist the town in the enforcement of state and local health and safety regulations and provide a method of correcting violations requiring immediate attention. The definitions, we have what is a short-term residential rental, what is an owner-occupied residential dwelling, and what is an operator. Those are the main terms that are thrown around in the bylaw. For Section 3, short-term rental licensing and registration. First, that you can't operate a short-term residential rental in the town of Buckland unless it's registered with the town of Buckland according to this chapter and complies with the other requirements. The operator has to submit an application, and the application would include a health inspection and a certification of compliance with building codes. Every application has to have the payment of fees and provide contact information for the operator and any agent that they designate, and it has to show a proof of liability insurance coverage for the short-term rental. The period of registration is 1 year. Acceptance of the registration and issuance of a number constitutes a license, and the fee is set by the select board. Section 4, non-transferability. The registrations are granted only to the operator. It does not run with the property. Section 5, the regulations. Right now, as the Board of Health currently conducts health inspections for registered short-term rentals. So this is following on with what is an ongoing program. They may promulgate regulations, to carry out and enforce the provisions of this chapter. Basically in charge of unreasonable noise, sanitary conditions, and other nuisance conditions. Town-issued registration number included on any listing, requiring the owner or operator to keep a register of those renting and dates of occupancy available to the Board of Health and Building Inspector. And obviously, a property shall maintain compliance with all applicable laws and shall have no outstanding building code violations. Initial compliance period, Section 6. All existing owner-occupied rental should be meeting the standards of this bylaw within 6 months of the effective date. All existing non-owner-occupied rentals that have previously been registered and inspected with the town of Buckland as of the date of the notice of the public hearing need to meet the standards of this bylaw within 6 months. And the complaint process and enforcement, this is again...
John, it's hard to hear you.
Okay. Do I need to turn a bit? Does that help?
That might help.
The complaint process and enforcement The Board of Health and its designee, this was the recommendation of council, because they will be already conducting health and safety inspections. And then there's the same bylaw language that exists in other, not this, no, this is a general bylaw, okay. This is similar language to zoning bylaw language about penalties and enforcement, that there's a fine available each day of noncompliance is a separate violation. This is rather boilerplate. Upon receipt of a complaint from any person, then the enforcing person, which would be someone for the Board of Health or their designee, can require an inspection. And severability is basically a standard thing in most documents. If any part of this is unconstitutional or invalid, it does not affect the remainder of this bylaw. So we are requesting your acceptance and approval of the general bylaw. We've scheduled a public hearing for the short-term rental zoning bylaw, and this bylaw proposal at March 7th here, March 14th here in Town Hall. That's the gist of it. I'd just like to ask any fellow planning board members if I've left anything out, or they would like to explain this further, or perhaps more clearly.
Well, I'm just, I don't remember if you said anything, John, about the bylaws. What's that? I'm going to just say, you might want to just say something about the process of getting to this bylaw, what?
Feel free.
Well, because I was recused during that.
That's
I can't
true.
really say how many meetings there were where the public was involved, but I think it's just worth your summing up the public input.
And you would like to address that?
Sure, we've been meeting monthly on this for the last, I don't know, more than a year, and we have had a lot of attendance at our regular meetings, people who have concerns on both sides of the issue, way more than pretty much any other issue we've ever, or the bylaw we've drafted, and we do feel like we've been taking those into account. And then I think, we've never done a general bylaw before, but I think we'd be, at the hearing, presenting it as a package deal and getting input on the whole thing, right? So this is considered a draft that could be amended again, depending on the input from that we receive at the public hearing.
Well, yeah, that is a point, yes.
So about how many of these exist legally in our community that have registered, and how many, do you have an estimate of how many that are just, operating
I have heard
under
that
the table?
number a few times, and I think, do you have a sense of it?
I know. It was 18 for residential, non-owner occupied, but we don't know how many are actually currently operating.
Those are the registered ones.
That was just registered.
And they're all owner occupied or non?
Those were the non-owner occupied.
So the people who live out of town who have a short-term
Yeah.
rental
So
here.
if you're owner occupied, yeah, I don't know that number.
We don't know yet.
Quite a bit.
Just a few, I think, were owner occupied, and the vast majority was non-owner occupied.
So what happens to those properties? Do they only have a short term that they can register?
As this bylaw lays out.
Okay.
And they need to go through the process, and they have the 6 months to measure up to the terms of the bylaw.
And after 6 months, that's at the end, right?
We're trying to get everything into the same equitable pot, and we're also trying to encourage, to emphasize owner occupancy in the town of Buckland, so that we don't have absentee owners buying up the housing stock, basically. So that has been one of the main thrusts of our bylaw effort. But to the point about whether this is a separate issue because the general bylaw is not in the planning board wheelhouse. And I think, because we're coming to you and telling everybody that this is a companion piece to our zoning bylaw, and it's really kind of the one needs the other. Nevertheless, we don't have, it's not our purview to deal with the general bylaw. So it's not clear to me that we, in the public hearing, can take any advice or make any changes or take any suggestions about that I think that if there are edits or whatever that are proposed to this general bylaw, I think that has to come to the select board head.
It's my suggestion that we have town council who offered the general bylaw be available to answer and address questions about the general bylaw. Clearly, the planning board is well-versed in the zoning, well, they're well-versed in both bylaws, but as their obligation under 40A is only to address in public hearing the zoning bylaw, I'd like to have council accessible.
For the public hearing.
For the public hearing.
We haven't done this before, so we're not necessarily
But, no, go ahead.
I see benefits, number one, people who live here can make extra income, you know, and there's not that many places for people to stay if they want to visit. And, you know, also, these places will be inspected, so you know you're not living in somebody's shed, you know. Maybe they have a bathroom, you know, or something. And, you know, I think it's something that needs to be addressed, you know.
More specifically answer your previous question, in the zoning bylaw, do you have a copy of that?
Yes.
Yes, we have it, yes.
For the second page, 4-9, performance standards. Section A, continuance of operation. We addressed all the possibilities of, this was one of these confusing points. Existing owner-occupied short-term rentals can continue as a permitted use as long as they're registered and licensed. And then existing non-owner occupied short-term rentals that have registered and been inspected as of the date of the notice of the public hearing, which is soon, have the right to continue as a permitted use. So they'll be grandfathered in as long as they're continuing to be registered and licensed. So new non-owner occupied building wouldn't be permitted, but the ones that exist now should continue as long as they're following these rules.
And that's not transferable, so
That's good.
the property is sold, that's the end of that.
And just to add that, if you are currently operating completely under the radar, so any that might not be registered or inspected, those would not be allowed to continue.
So the grandfathering in was a compromise, I'm assuming. That was a...
Yeah, well, we have to be realistic.
Well, thank you all for doing this, because I know it's hard, and, but it's important. And I went on the Airbnb site to look, and I think the places were in our whole area, you know. And those are places that people need to live. We can't, our restaurants can't find people to work in the restaurants because the people don't live here. There's no rentals available. You know, it's a real need.
Yes, if people are misbehaving, if the people are living on the property, that's the best kind of policing that can happen.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yes, you guys have, yeah, this isn't the first time we've had this discussion over the last couple of years, so I remember when you guys were first venturing into these waters. You know, they looked awfully murky at that time, and it looks like you guys are, you know, definitely did your due diligence, and I guess the only question that I would have is this kind of consistent with what other communities are doing?
Question.
I think it's largely modeled on the examples that were brought to us by our FERC guide.
Oh, okay.
It's not made out of thin air. Actually, bring us, well, do you think this is a better way to approach this or another? We would at least have a choice, or we find our own way through. But it's been looked at by town council, and I think he suggested it. He made some of the well, we had to do some sharp turns after he gave his advice on how we were going. So it has been steered, I think. So I think we certainly should speak with him. He has to do a question, but he has had a participation in this.
So after that 6 months, if someone wanted, from out of town, wanted to do a short-term rental here, is there a process at all, or is it just completely forbidden?
Owner occupied is our watchword.
Okay.
There are, well, it's not to say that they're denied a business opportunity if they wanted to offer a long-term rental. That's definitely a community need. People are hot to jump on the Airbnb wagon because it's quick cash. But it's not necessarily, it's not guaranteed, it's not that reliable. And again, as you pointed out, it's not an investment in the community.
Right.
In the same way.
And in the zoning bylaw, if you look at that last section, short-term residential rental, 4 rooms,
Right.
Non-occupied residential dwelling are allowed by special permit. However, this is a little bit, you can remember, in the commercial,
Oh, right.
industrial, and village commercial, commercial and historic industrial.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
It's not
This
a
one's
shut door. But
Okay.
since it's a commercial activity, commercial zones seem to be the appropriate place. And there are
It
some
does.
possibilities in commercial zones.
Can I ask one question? I missed the last meeting. I missed the last meeting, so I apologize if you addressed this. Were you able to come up with a solution for local cars and new license? Is there a limit to the number of cars allowed on the license? Per unit, right?
I think that we can't regulate how many cars are on anybody's property. It's what's parked on the street.
Right.
That allow an address, and it was basically, the host needs to provide the opportunity for parking for one person per unit.
I think hers, John, is a unique situation because she has a driveway where she has a right of passage on someone else's driveway, and she's being blocked. So I'm not sure if that's a legal thing that if it happens, you call our police. I don't know. So she was just
I don't see
wondering.
how this bylaw could address that problem.
Yeah, neither do I. That's what I was just, Yeah. Now, John, I'm not asking, I guess I am, what are all these in here? In the front page of it, did you?
That's the use table. Now, you should be familiar with your zoning bylaws.
Okay, yeah. Well, I will go home and read them tonight. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's been around for, I don't know, 10 years or more, but it wasn't there when I first got here.
Yeah.
It's shorthand, it's a good way to determine what can be done in what zone.
Okay.
And so if you look at the top of the page, it'll have initials such as VR, village residential, historic industrial, all those.
Okay.
And then you look at the use on the left, you follow it across to the zone, and you find out whether that use.
Well, it can be used. Thank you. I figured it would be something that simple that way, but tonight I'm not quite simple. Not quite.
The lady in the white sweater back there and this one over here in the gray that just asked about the parking, can you just go and identify yourself, please, for the record?
Carly Vernon, 34 Sears.
Okay.
Adriana Isasagiri, 47 school, and county board member.
What number school?
47.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I kind of like this, John. My son's, one of them lives in Heath, and he says the problem up there is they're losing all their stuff. People come from, it's nothing to throw $300,000 down when you're from New York making the money they made, and then what am I saying, it's the non-owner, thank you. And so they rent out to somebody and they just go crazy, party time, and so I'm glad you guys have got this. You did a good job, so. Yep.
Okay.
So you'll need to vote to include both of these bylaw amendments, include them on your annual town meeting warrant. This is not necessarily a recommendation one way or another, although I'm certainly, we're hearing support, which is yes. But we want to make sure that you're acknowledging that they'll be on the warrant.
Right. And after the public hearing, they could still be altered a little bit at that point.
Well, you wanted to address that?
No, no. So technically, yes, right? I mean, technically, that's the purpose of the public hearing, is for the planning board to hear from the public and take in any additional thoughts or concerns. For the zoning bylaw, yeah, for the zoning bylaw, correct. Well, I mean, I guess technically either, because council will be here to represent the town for the general bylaw. But I think that the planning board's process has been so lengthy and so transparent, and that we're heavily optimistic that there will be minimum opportunity for changes at this point. Right? I'm not sure how much more John can take. But that's the reason that we're having this tonight, is to allow the planning board plenty of time for the public hearing before you have to finalize your warrant. Now, changes can be made even after you vote the warrant. And those changes, so long as they're within the scope of the bylaw itself, can be presented to town meeting in a motion. However, that's where things get really complicated with versions. So,
Little pieces of paper.
the longer answer is absolutely, there's room for the public to continue to comment and for the planning board to hear those comments. But the technical side of it is that we're really hoping that this is the version so that we can get it into the warrant and not confuse people with multiple versions.
Okay. I would accept a motion, motion, that we have here, to include both amendments on the annual town meeting warrant.
Second?
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you for this real teamwork.
She wrote in here. See that? I think she was trying to throw us a little curveball.
She is. She hasn't changed. Not at all.
All right. Look at that. It is a little after 7, and we finally made it through all of our appointments.
I told my husband he'll go heat up his own soup.
We're moving now, Mary. Now we're moving along. Okay. Back to our agenda. We'll be moving on to the Beacon Hill and the Berkshire Hills Municipal Conference. When is that coming up? I did see
April 6th.
April 6th.
Mark?
Oh, it's April.
Is it April?
Yeah, it's April.
Yeah, I think it was.
April 6th.
April 6th,
Saturday.
from 9 to 1 at the Lennox Town Hall in Lennox. This invitation is informational, but it'd be great if somebody wants to attend. It may not be me, but we'll see.
But you're the chair, you should go. Are we going to have to, flip for this?
You don't have to flip, you can go. It's an invitation.
Wow, you guys aren't, either of you interested in going?
Not particularly.
Particularly? All right.
We'll see, though. You never know. Things change.
Depends what they're having for lunch.
Oh, we should, maybe, if they don't want to do it, I will go. But maybe we should, well, maybe we should just say that someone, a representative from the
Maybe
select
Heather will
board-
go with you, and you can make it a girls' trip for the day.
She can't go.
Well, that was what I thought, it was March 6th, so I'll look at my calendar.
Oh, all right, okay, okay, let's look at your calendar.
It really should be a select board member. I don't think it's a town administrator role. I think Buckland should be represented.
I can do it. If you, unless you two want to
I
go.
haven't even, I barely even started looking at my March calendar, never mind April, so.
But they need to know there's a, they want to know if someone, maybe we could say that a member of the select board will be there.
Great, I
Okay,
will.
and then
I
we
will,
can,
yeah.
we can joust about it later.
All right.
All right. You
We
might be
have,
inspired.
we have an election appointment for Kim Klein. I'd make a motion to appoint Kim Klein as an election worker for the 24 elections.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Documents to sign, we have the Depot Street and Freight Yard contract with A. Martins and Son. We'll make a motion to approve the contract agreement with A. Martins and Sons for Depot Street and Freight Yard improvements.
You second it?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Permits and licenses, we don't have any listed tonight. Minutes and warrants, we have the August 31st, 23 minutes. Mary on the catch-up here. Good job, Mary.
Does anybody know why the 2024 meetings aren't on Falls Cable yet?
I think, well,
They're just not there yet. So
Okay.
I went on to see myself, and they're not there. If I had been able to catch Otis when he was here, I could have asked, but I'll follow up.
are they up on YouTube yet?
I don't know.
Maybe?
So it wasn't just me?
No,
As long as I know it's not just me.
but I am,
matters, right?
I am hearing that the meeting was not live on Channel 9. So for people that would have been tuning in from home, it wasn't live again this evening.
Okay. Well, I think that's what Otis was maybe here trying to work on.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the August 31st minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have the vendor warrant, 24-19, and payroll warrant, 24-19.
I have a question. Why the Eversource bill, $4,658.56? That's what we call it,
We would have taken into consideration all the buildings,
all the building,
and your wastewater treatment bill is over $2,000 a month.
And then the compactor, I'm sure.
Yeah, so between all, that's the monthly bill for all of our buildings and services,
Okay, thank you.
including streetlights.
Oh, okay, well, thank you for answering my question.
That will hopefully drop dramatically once the solar goes in.
Yes, that's
And,
true.
yeah, both at back end.
Yeah. I would make a motion to approve the accounts payable and payroll warrants for February 27th, 24.
Second that?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Items not reasonably anticipated by chair, 48 hours in advance of the meeting. I have nothing. Select board member concerns? No. Town administrator short report? Great report, Heather.
No, I do want to let you know that your RFP, your request for proposals for the police station, goes live tomorrow.
Cool.
It is advertised in the Central Register, Combis, the Greenfield Reporter, and it will be on the town website. And we will reach out to those who have expressed previous interest to let them know where they can find it. But it is, you're officially on the market.
Wow.
Nobody's going to buy any, oh, you mean the building, yeah.
Yeah. Not you.
That it?
I got the hint.
If you have something else, I'll give you a couple more.
If anybody has any questions about any of the other projects, I'm happy to answer them, but I think that's the only one that I really wanted to make sure that we announced, so because it is live tomorrow, and you would contact me either by email or by phone, and I can get it to you. Submissions will be due, the deadline for the proposals is April 8th, and then you'll begin your review process.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, it is.
Very good. Public comment?
Very patient.
Thank you.
I was going to introduce you if you
No,
didn't
that's
come
okay.
in.
Actually, so I'm your board's clerk.
Okay.
Akmal Esfahani. That's not why I'm here, sorry. I'm here to state, I guess, for the record, or for the minutes, that I am in the process of seeking the 2,000 signatures necessary to run in the upcoming congressional election as a Republican. So I just wanted to state for the minutes, and if with the select board's approval, I would like to submit my resume with contact information to be attached to the minutes, if that's approved, so anyone in town can contact me if they're interested to know more. And that's it.
Okay. I think we could do that.
Just give it to her, or?
Yep, that would go to Mary.
Yeah, to Mary.
So the downside of this is I'm losing another board's clerk.
She's usually a month or two behind, but don't worry.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you so much.
So I'd like to know a little bit more about the position, like what you're talking congressional, you'd be running
Against McGovern.
against McGovern.
Yeah, as a Republican. Yeah, but I have to, I'm presently, and this is my first time doing this, so I have to submit the 2,000 signatures to vote to run the primary. To my understanding, there's no one else running at present. All that might change soon. And then, obviously, after September, if that were successful, then, the November election. So,
Where do you live?
Greenfield.
Greenfield, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
How many towns are in that? That's a huge district.
Yes, this is the first time I'm speaking to, but I have the list in my little notebook
You've
of.
got a long ways to go.
Truly, yes, in a short time too, because I have 2 months to do it. So.
And what inspired you?
Oh gosh, many things really. I mean, I've always kind of thought I would do something kind of like this. Yeah, for better or for worse. So.
No, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Akmal Esfahani. AHMAD. ESFAHANI.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Yeah.
Okay.
Exciting. We're going to be able to say we knew him when.
Just don't give your personal number to Heather, because she will hunt you down.
Too late.
Our upcoming meetings, our next select board meeting will be on March 24th, 2024 at 5:30. Maybe.
But I feel like we have one in between there.
March 12th.
That's what I said, March 12th.
26.
And then we have the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, right, we're in February.
Yep, 12 and 26, yeah.
Yeah, so March 12th and March 26th, tentatively at 5:30. So
We're going to stick to that. These early meetings are going to be the death of us.
I'm not going to hold you to it, because we said that last time too, and here we are. I would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and have a good night.